You already lost today. Not when your alarm went off, not when you checked your phone. You lost it the night before, while you were lying in the dark, thinking about everything you cannot control. That is not a weakness, that is a pattern, and patterns can be broken. Every morning feels the same. You open your eyes, and before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already running. Running through yesterday's failures, running through today's problems, running through conversations that happened 3 weeks ago that nobody else even remembers. You tell yourself you will start fresh. You tell yourself today is different. But by 6:45 a.m., your chest is already tight. Your jaw is already clenched, and the day has not even started. This is not anxiety. This is not weakness. This is what happens when a man has never been taught how to own his morning. His mind owns him instead. You scroll, you check, you consume other people's lives before you have even decided what you want from your own. And somewhere deep inside, you already know. The version of yourself you were supposed to become is still waiting. He has been waiting for years. Most men will never meet him. Not because they are not capable, because they never learned to build the fortress before the battle begins. If this already feels too real, drop a like on this video right now. If you are ready to build something most men will never have, subscribe, because what is coming will not be repeated. Comment one word below that describes how your mornings feel right now. One word. That is all. And stay locked in, because Law 5 is the one that most men close the video before reaching. And it is the only law that actually changes everything. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man on earth. He commanded armies. He ruled an empire. He had every reason to wake up feeling invincible. He woke up in dread. He wrote about it. In his own private journal, never meant to be read by anyone, he admitted that every morning he had to fight himself just to rise, just to begin. The most disciplined man in history struggled with the same thing you are struggling with right now. But here is what Marcus understood that most men never will. The morning is not something that happens to you. It is something you build, brick by brick. Before the world gets access to your mind, before the noise begins, before the anxiety finds the door unlocked. He called it the inner citadel, the fortress inside you that no outside force can breach. And it is not built during the crisis, it is built before it. These are the laws of that fortress, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to construct it. Law 1. Own the first thought. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no control over his body, his location, or his circumstances. But he spent his entire life mastering one thing. The first response. He taught that the moment between what happens and how you react is where your entire life is decided. Most men never find that moment. Their mind reacts before they even realize it has begun. Your first thought in the morning is not yours. It has been shaped by whatever you consumed before you slept. The argument you replayed, the feed you scrolled, the worries you entertained at 1 a.m. like honored guests. They all slept in your head, and they are the first thing waiting for you when you open your eyes. The man who does not own his first thought does not own his day. He is already responding to a story someone else wrote inside his mind. Here is what changes everything. Before you reach for your phone, before you check a message, before you let the world in, you take one breath, you ask one question. Who do I choose to be today? Not what do I have to do? Who do I choose to be? That question rewrites the morning before it begins. Most men give away this moment without knowing it exists. You cannot afford to give it away anymore. Law 2. Starve the overthinking loop. The Stoics had a name for the voice inside your head that catastrophizes everything. They called it the undisciplined mind, and they treated it the way a surgeon treats an infected wound. Not with comfort, with precision. Overthinking is not thinking. Let that land. Overthinking is your mind running the same broken circuit over and over, convincing you that more analysis will eventually produce certainty. It will not. Certainty is not the destination. Action is. You have spent entire mornings solving problems that do not exist yet, preparing responses to conversations that will never happen, building anxiety about outcomes you have zero control over. And while your mind was doing all of that, the actual day, the real day with real opportunities inside it, was passing without you in it. What are you actually afraid of? Not the meeting, not the message you have not sent, not the decision you keep avoiding. You are afraid that if you stop thinking, you will have to start doing. And doing means risking, and risking means you might fail. And failure means you will have to face who you are when things do not go perfectly. The Stoic answer is brutal and clean. Do the next right thing, not the next perfect thing. The next right thing, then the one after that. The loop breaks when you move, not when you think harder. Stop feeding the loop. It has eaten enough of your life. Law 3. Build the wall before dawn. Seneca wrote that the man who does not know which port he is sailing to finds no wind favorable. He had no concept of wasted mornings because he structured his mind before the day had a chance to structure it for him. Most men walk into their day open, completely open. No direction, no intention, no wall between their inner world and everything the world is about to throw at them. This is not freedom. This is exposure. The mental fortress is not built during the storm. You cannot construct walls while arrows are already landing. The fortress must exist before the battle begins. That means the 10 minutes before your feet touch the floor are the most strategically important minutes of your entire day. Not meditation if that is not your path. Not journaling if that feels forced, just intention. One clear decision about who you will be when the pressure comes, because the pressure is coming. It always does. Write it down if you have to. Say it out loud if you need to hear it. But decide before the world decides for you. The men who never build the wall wonder why they feel invaded by noon. You know why now. Build the wall. Law 4. Eliminate the morning poison. This one will make you uncomfortable. Your phone is not a tool in the morning. It is a weapon pointed at your own mind, and you are the one pulling the trigger. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught that a man's character is formed by what he repeatedly exposes himself to. Not what he intends, not what he believes, what he repeatedly, habitually, automatically exposes himself to. You are exposing yourself to comparison, outrage, other people's chaos, other people's highlight reels, and 100 different demands on your attention before you have given one single moment of attention to yourself. That is not a morning routine. That is a surrender ritual. Every notification you check before you have owned your own mind is a vote for the version of you that never builds the fortress. It is a vote for the man who reacts instead of decides, who scrolls instead of rises, who consumes instead of creates. What you feed your mind in the first 30 minutes determines the emotional weather of your entire day. Is the version of you that you are proud of built on other people's timelines and other people's opinions? Or is he built on something you actually chose? Cut the poison. Even for 30 minutes. Watch what happens to your entire day. What comes next is the law most men in this niche refuse to even discuss. Because Law 5 requires something Law 1 through 4 do not. It requires a man to be completely honest about the identity he has been protecting at the cost of his own growth. And most men would rather stay comfortable than face that. Law 5.
Destroy the identity that is keeping you small. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to the public, not to history, to himself. And in those private pages he destroyed the version of himself that was tempted by comfort, praise, and the need to be seen as already great. He did it every morning, deliberately, ruthlessly. Here is the identity most men in your position are secretly protecting. The identity of the man who tried, the man who almost made it, the man who had reasons. That identity is safe. It requires no risk. It demands no change. It explains away every gap between who you are and who you know you could be. And it is destroying your life slowly enough that you have not noticed how much it has already taken. You are not an overthinker. That is not who you are. That is a pattern you have been running because somewhere along the way your mind learned that thinking was safer than acting, safer than failing, safer than being seen and found to be less than enough. But you are not less than enough. You have just been protecting yourself from a version of failure that most men never even get close to because they never tried hard enough to fail at that level. The Stoic path demands you kill the old identity, not improve it, not negotiate with it. Kill it. Every morning you choose. The man who has reasons or the man who has results. That choice does not happen at noon. It does not happen when motivation arrives. It happens before 7 a.m. in the dark, in the silence, in the moment before the world knows you are awake. That is where the fortress is either built or abandoned. Which man wakes up tomorrow? Law 6. Master the body to command the mind. Musonius Rufus, the Roman Stoic who trained Marcus Aurelius's generation, taught that the body and the mind are not separate instruments. They are one system, and a man who neglects the body in the morning is attempting to fight a war with a weapon he never sharpened. You cannot think your way out of a nervous system that is wound tight from inactivity. This does not require an hour in a gym. It does not require a perfect routine you read about online. It requires 5 minutes of physical signal. Cold water on your face, 20 push-ups on your bedroom floor, a walk outside before your phone comes with you. The signal to your nervous system is simple and ancient. The body that moves is the body that is not in danger, and the mind attached to a body that is not in danger can think with clarity instead of fear. Every man who tells you he cannot find 5 minutes in the morning has found 45 minutes for his phone. That is not a time problem. That is a priority problem. Move the body first. The mind follows. It has always been this way. The fortress is not built in your thoughts. It is built in your physiology. Law 7. Choose your suffering. The Stoics did not promise that life would become painless. They promised something far more useful, that a man who chooses his suffering owns it, and a man who owns his suffering cannot be broken by it. Every morning you are going to feel something difficult. That is not negotiable. The question is whether you chose it or whether it arrived uninvited and found you with no walls up. The man who wakes up early chose that suffering. The tiredness is his. He owns it. The man who trains when he does not want to chose that suffering. The discomfort is his. He owns it. The man who sits in silence with his thoughts instead of escaping into his phone chose that suffering. The stillness is his. He owns it. And the man who owns his suffering cannot be victimized by it. But the man who avoids chosen suffering, he gets the other kind, the kind that arrives on its own schedule, in the form of regret, in the form of a life that feels like it is happening to him instead of being built by him. There is no version of a strong life that does not contain suffering. The only question is whether yours was chosen or assigned. Choose it, own it. That is the fortress.
Law 8. The silence that builds giants. Cato the Younger walked into rooms and said nothing until he had something worth saying. Men who had never met him felt his presence before he spoke. Not because of what he said, because of what he did not say. In a world that rewards noise, silence has become the rarest form of strength. Your anxiety in the morning is partly a noise problem. The noise outside and the noise you generate inside trying to drown it out. Thought over thought, worry under worry. A relentless internal broadcast that never pauses long enough to receive anything useful. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is where clarity lives. 5 minutes of actual silence in the morning. No music, no podcast, no phone, no internal rehearsal of conversations. Just you. Present. Breathing. Aware of what is actually here right now rather than what might exist later in a future your mind keeps inventing. In that silence, the real priorities surface. The false urgencies dissolve. The noise of other people's expectations fades long enough for your own voice to be heard. Most men have not heard their own voice clearly in years. That is not an accident. That is the result of a life lived entirely on the outside with nothing guarded on the inside. 5 minutes. Every morning. Non-negotiable. The giants were not loud men. They were men who knew when to be quiet. Law 9. The evening before is the morning you build. Seneca wrote that a man should review every day before it ends, not to punish himself, to understand himself. The morning does not begin at dawn. It begins the night before. The anxiety that greets you at 6 a.m. was planted at midnight when you stayed on your phone instead of letting your mind settle. When you let the last thing you consumed be the most chaotic, most stimulating, most emotionally volatile content available, and then you tried to sleep on top of it. That is not rest. That is rehearsal for everything you are afraid of. The Stoic evening is not complicated. Review what happened. Accept what cannot be changed. Decide who you will be tomorrow. Then close the day deliberately the way a craftsman closes his workshop. Everything in its place. The work acknowledged. The rest earned. What you put into the evening determines what rises in the morning. Most men are building terrible mornings at 11 p.m. and wondering why they feel ambushed at dawn. You now know where the real morning routine begins. Build it backwards. Law 10. Never negotiate with the weak version. This is the law, the one underneath all the others. Marcus Aurelius came back to this daily. In almost every entry of Meditations there is a version of this truth. Do not become a man who makes promises to himself in the evening and negotiates them away in the morning. The weak version of you is not going away. He will always be there, warm under the blanket, full of reasons, brilliant at justification. He has a voice that sounds exactly like yours, and he uses it to steal minutes, then hours, then years. You do not defeat him by wanting more. You defeat him by deciding before he speaks. Decision the night before. The alarm goes off and there is no conversation. The workout starts and there is no negotiation. The phone stays down and there is no debate. Because the debate was already settled by the version of you who was thinking clearly the night before. The fortress is not held by emotion. It is held by decision. And the man who decides in advance cannot be talked out of his own life by the version of himself who is afraid of it. Every morning the weak version will speak. He will be reasonable. He will have good points. He will remind you how tired you are, how hard things have been, how you deserve a break. Do not answer him. Build the wall. Light the fire. Rise. The 2% are not superhuman. They just stopped negotiating. Picture the man you were 1 month ago. He woke up reactive. He handed his first thought to his phone before he had even decided if he was awake. He spent 20 minutes lying in the dim light, feeding a loop that solved nothing and consumed everything. He walked into his day with no wall up, no intention set, no fortress built. And by noon,
He was already exhausted from fighting a battle he never prepared for. Now picture the man who used these laws for 30 days. He wakes before the world demands anything from him, not because he loves discomfort, because he has learned that the silence before the noise is where he actually lives. He takes his first thought back. He moves his body before the anxiety can settle into it. He sits in 5 minutes of silence that cost him nothing and gives him everything. He reviewed last night, so this morning was already built before he opened his eyes. His day is not perfect. The pressure still comes. The problems still arrive. The world is not suddenly simple or forgiving or fair, but he is not surprised by any of it. He built the fortress before the battle, and so when the battle comes, he is already inside his walls, already armed, already decided about who he is. This is not a transformation that happens someday. It happens tomorrow morning, before 7 a.m. In the silence between who you have been and who you have decided to become. The gates are open. Walk through them.
Marcus Aurelius wrote these words to himself, to no one else, in private, with no audience and no applause waiting. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That was not a quote written for a poster. That was a man, alone in the dark, before the empire woke up, reminding himself who he had decided to be. He could have chosen differently. Every morning he could have let the dread win. He had every reason. He was at war. He was in pain. He was surrounded by people who wanted something from him every waking hour. He chose the fortress instead, every single morning. The question is not whether you are capable of the same. You already know you are. The question is whether you will choose it tomorrow, before 7 a.m., in the dark, when no one is watching. Rise.